Chapter 282. There was less than a month before the Stars ranking tournament. The prodigies of the various major sects in the East Unicorn continent were all actively preparing for the tournament. Some of them were cultivating secret techniques, some were cultivating martial arts, and some were in seclusion, striving to break through one realm before the tournament. Heaven Fiend sect, in a courtyard on a mountain peak occupied by the Yen clan. Qinggu, you are a rare prodigy of our Yen clan. You have to obtain the top 36 in this Stars ranking tournament. Only by obtaining the top 36 will you be able to obtain the Heaven Dipper Battle Chi and break through to the Heaven Dipper realm faster. Once you reach the Heaven Dipper realm, your cultivation speed will increase by several folds. Otherwise, even if you are a 6-star bone frame, you will still need a lot of time to become an expert. In the courtyard, a handsome middle-aged man with long hair stood with his hands behind his back and instructed the beautiful Yen Qinggu. Yen Qinggu nodded. "Father, don't worry. Qinggu will definitely do it." Her father was the Yen clan head, Yen Baitin, and also the Heaven Fiend sect's protector. He was at the first level of Reincarnation Realm. "How is the cultivation of the 4-star secret technique, Flying Swallow / that I imparted to you?" Yen Baitin inquired. The Yen clan was an established clan in the Heaven Fiend sect and had deep foundations. They might not have 5-star secret techniques, but they still had 4-star secret techniques. Yen Qinggu said, "Father, I have already cultivated the Flying Swallow / to the completion stage." With the Flying Swallow / that is almost at the completion stage, it shouldn't be a problem for you to obtain the top 36. Yen Baitin laughed heartily. 4-star secret techniques were extremely powerful, and the subcompletion stage was equivalent to a perfect 3-star secret technique. Eternal Spring Valley. One of the top sects in the East Unicorn continent. In a small and exquisite valley in the Eternal Spring Valley, Su Miu was wielding a sickle and practicing a secret technique. Back in the tomb, she had also obtained a 6-star secret technique called Qi Gathering Dipper. It could condense Qi into Dipper Qi. The so-called Dipper Qi was unrelated to the Heaven Dipper realm. It was a type of Qi utilization, or it should be said that it was a higher grade of Qi. Some powerful cultivation techniques would cultivate Qi that was Dipper Qi. However, this level of cultivation technique was usually an Earth-level cultivation technique. Only a few Mystic-class peak-tier cultivation techniques could cultivate Dipper Qi, and they had to be at a very high rank. With the Qi-condensing aura secret art, Rain's strength increased tremendously, even though she had just cultivated the Qi-condensing aura secret art to the Azure Astral Realm. In the valley, there were pieces of metal ores that were as tall as a human. With a swing of the scythe, the metal ores were cut open as if they were tofu. Ha! After 81 strikes, Rain's aura reached its peak. A layer of red light appeared on the scythe, and with the support of the red light, not only did Rain easily cut through the metal ores, but it also left a huge crack in the ground. Scarlet Dipper Realm. Joy flashed in Rain's eyes. There were a total of 4 realms of Qi gathering into Astral Dipper, namely Azure, Red, Yellow, and Black. Among them, Azure Astral Dipper was equivalent to a perfect 3-star secret technique, Red Astral Dipper was equivalent to a perfect 4-star secret technique, Yellow Astral Dipper was equivalent to a perfect 5-star secret technique, and Black Astral Dipper was equivalent to a perfect 6-star secret technique. With the Scarlet Dipper realm, I have a higher chance of getting into the top 10. Su Muyu's cultivation was already at the 9th level of the Earth realm, hence, her cultivation wasn't considered to be at a disadvantage. This was something that Li Fuchen couldn't compare with. Azure Water Sect. After spending less than 10 days, Li Fuchen's Blaze Devil Sword Intent had finally progressed to the perfection rank and was extremely close to a Mystic-class peak-tier sword intent. I don't have many contribution points left. Li Fuchen let out a bitter laugh. Back then, he had 10 million contribution points, and almost half of it was used to exchange for various resources. He had been using them until now and still had plenty left. Of course, it was mainly because he had obtained plenty of resources on the outside. As for the other half of the contribution points, they were almost all used up in the Sword Monument Canyon. 100,000 contribution points a day wasn't something that a regular person could afford. But the rewards are great too. The Meteor Sword Intent actually progressed again and is now at the Mystic class high tier. The Meteor Sword Intent was only a Mystic class low tier sword intent, but it had advanced by 2 tiers, surpassing the Starfire Sword Intent, Rotating Flow Sword Intent, and the 9 Revolution Sword Intent. It was truly a miracle. The Mystic class high tier Meteor Sword Intent speed and burst power had reached an extremely horrific stage. Li Fuchen had tried it before, and when the Meteor Sword Art's only move, Meteor Fall, was executed, the sword's speed was extremely shocking. To a certain extent, it was even more dangerous than the Blaze Devil Sword Art. When the speed was faster than the opponent's reaction, a lot of things would lose their meaning. In this world of martial arts, there was nothing that couldn't be overcome but speed. The Meteor Sword Intent shall be my main sword intent, Li Fuchen thought to himself. His intuition told him that the Meteor Sword Intent's potential was astonishing and it couldn't be treated as a regular sword intent. It is time to break through the Sword Essence secret technique. Li Fuchen had never slacked off on the Sword Essence secret technique. In the Mystic Martial Hidden Domain, Li Fuchen had been researching the Bronze Sword Essence for a long time. The Bronze Sword Essence had a total of over 1,000 types of yellow class, high-tier sword patterns. Li Fuchen had already combined these 1,000 types of yellow class, high-tier sword patterns into 9 types of mystic class, mid-tier sword patterns. As long as these 9 types of mystic class, mid-tier sword patterns were combined into one mystic class, high-tier sword pattern, the bronze sword pattern would be formed. As time ticked by, with his astounding perception, Li Fuchen was getting closer to success. 3 types of sword patterns fused into one. 4 types of sword patterns fused into one. 5 types of sword patterns fused into one. Perhaps it was due to his robust accumulation and the fact that he had pushed the Blaze Devil Sword Intent to the completion rank, it allowed Li Fuchen to have a deeper understanding of sword patterns. There weren't any twists and turns when combining sword patterns. 7 types of sword patterns fused into one. 8 types of sword patterns fused into one. When the 9 types of sword patterns fused into one, Li Fuchen's body emitted a horrific chi presence. Be it a sword Dao master or a sword pattern master, it was actually a pursuit of the sword Dao. After mastering the bronze sword pattern, Li Fuchen was already considered a sword pattern master. At the same time, he was already able to create a mystic class sword art and was considered a sword Dao master. Right now, his body was emitting an even more unfathomable and terrifying chi presence. But soon enough, the terrifying chi presence was withdrawn and Li Fuchen returned to normal. Sword patterns are also a part of the sword Dao. After comprehending the bronze sword pattern, the benefits don't just seem to be an additional secret technique. Li Fuchen felt his mind surging with inspiration like a tide. At this moment, his sword Dao foundation had increased again and he was just waiting for a new burst. After mastering the bronze sword pattern, Li Fuchen started to condense the bronze sword pattern on his bones. The bones that were originally covered with black iron sword patterns were now being corroded by the bronze sword pattern. 5%, 10%, 20%. After a few days, 30% of Li Fuchen's bones that were covered with black iron sword patterns had been replaced by the bronze sword pattern. Raising his index and middle fingers, a wisp of bronze sword chi extended and extended from Li Fuchen's fingertip. It was extremely sharp. The bronze sword chi is more than 2-fold stronger than the black iron sword chi. This is only a 30% condensed bronze sword pattern. Chapter 283. Azure Water Grand Hall, Li Fuchen, Li Xiangru, Qin Yuanhu, and Xue Feng were all here. At the seat of honor, Ouyang Wendian sat high up. Ouyang Wendian sized up Li Fuchen and nodded to himself. Li Fuchen, who had the lowest cultivation level, was already at the 8th level of the Earth Realm. This cultivation level might be rather low, but with Li Fuchen's valiant combat ability, it was already commendable. Li Fuchen naturally didn't break through to the 8th level of the Earth Realm through normal cultivation. He consumed an elixir that increased his cultivation level. This elixir would affect his future cultivation. Originally, Li Fuchen would only need 1 or 2 years to advance from the 7th level of the Earth Realm to the 9th level. After consuming this elixir, Li Fuchen would need at least 2 years to stay at the 8th level of the Earth realm. Of course, this was under normal circumstances. Li Fuchen's cultivation technique rank was extremely high and his spirit will was extremely strong too, thus the side effects were relatively lesser. In addition, this side effect could be cleansed with the Star Road energy. Li Fuchen's body originally had some Star Road energy left. After cleansing a portion of the side effects, the Star Road energy had completely vanished and the side effects were reduced by almost half. The 4 of you are the 4 most talented individuals in our Azure Water sect. You are also the representatives of our Azure Water sect to participate in the Stars ranking tournament. This is the Mystic class, high-tier artifact sword bestowed to you by the sect. Familiarize yourselves with it. Ouyang Wenyan waved his hand and shot 4 chilling lights at Li Fuchen and the others. Li Fuchen and the others moved with lightning speed and grabbed onto the chilling lights. The chilling light was a sheathed longsword. When the sword was drawn, a razor-sharp sword chi was emitted. Even without the injection of chi, it still gave off a bone-chilling intent. Great sword! Li Fuchen praised. He had seen Mystic class, high-tier artifact swords on the outside. A single Mystic class, high-tier artifact sword would cost at least a few 100,000 gold coins. Those who could forge Mystic class, high-tier artifact swords were worthy of being called Master Swordsmith. Li Fuchen might have the financial capability to purchase it, but his previous cultivation level was too weak and wasn't able to utilize the power of a Mystic class, high-tier artifact sword to its limits. A Mystic class, high-tier artifact sword that couldn't be utilized to its limits wasn't that different from a Mystic class, mid-tier artifact sword that could be utilized to its limits. Of course, it would be different if he had a top-tier profound rank sword. Even if he could only exert 30 to 40% of its power, it would be far superior to a mid-tier profound rank sword. It was a pity that a Mystic class peak-tier artifact sword was hard to come by. In the East Unicorn continent, there weren't many people who could forge a Mystic class peak-tier weapon. Some of the newly promoted Reincarnation Realm martial artists might not even have a suitable Mystic class peak-tier weapon. They could only make do with a Mystic class high-tier weapon. Now that Li Fuchen was at the 8th level of the Earth realm, he was able to utilize 90% or even 100% of the power of a Mystic class high-tier artifact sword. After all, he was now a sword rune master, so he was naturally very familiar with the sword runes of a high-grade profound class treasure sword. If Li Fuchen had a Mystic class high-tier sword, he could even create a Mystic class high-tier artifact sword himself. Thank you, Sovereign. The 4 sheathed their swords. Ouyang Wenyan nodded. 3 days later, we will depart on time. All of you can make some preparations. Li Fuchen, stay behind for now. After Li Xiangru and the 2 others left, Ouyang Wenyan smiled. How is your cultivation of the 4-star secret technique? Li Fuchen's perception was said to be the number 1 in the history of the Azure Water sect. He was able to comprehend a Mystic class high-tier sword intent at the young age of 20. Such a perception was far superior to regular 6-star bone frames. After the sect selection tournament, Ouyang Wenyan made an exception to impart a 4-star secret technique to Li Fuchen. Before this, only sword maniac, Li Xiangru, made an exception to obtain a 4-star secret technique. But Li Xiangru obtained it a few years ago, while Li Fuchen obtained it in less than a month. It was rather hasty and Ouyang Wenyan wanted to know of Li Fuchen's progress. Li Fuchen cupped his fist and replied, Sect Patriarch, Fuchen has already cultivated it to the completion rank. What? Already at the completion rank? Ouyang Wenyan was shocked. Li Fuchen replied. The 4-star secret technique that Ouyang Wenyan imparted to him was called Pure Yang Dipper Chi. Activating this secret technique would allow the body's true Inferno Chi to transform into pure Yang Dipper Chi. It was much more fearsome and tyrannical than the mystical Dragon Chi. To Li Fuchen, cultivating a 4-star secret technique was much easier than cultivating a Mystic class high-tier martial art. Secret techniques usually involved the body structure. But with Li Fuchen's powerful awareness, he had a deep understanding of the body structure. Even a peak-level Heaven realm martial artist wouldn't be able to understand their own body as well as Li Fuchen. He might even be able to compete with a reincarnation realm martial artist. Hence, in less than 10 days, Li Fuchen cultivated the pure Yang Dipper Qi to the completion rank without any difficulty. Show me. Ouyang Wendian was still skeptical. Li Fuchen took a deep breath and circulated the blazing and violent true inferno qi within his body. His qi presence was like a small sun that filled the entire azure water grand hall. Boom! The already horrific qi presence, in the blink of the eye, exploded again. It was even more condensed and tyrannical. Visible to the naked eye, Li Fuchen's body was emitting a layer of pale yellow light. This layer of light gave off a feeling of indestructible and condensed steel. Just a single glance was enough to shock anyone. Pure Yang Dipper Qi was a high-grade application of Qi. Or rather, it was a type of high-grade Qi. Just like a Heaven Realm martial artist Qi, even though it was also Qi, but the quality was much better than an Earth Realm martial artist Qi. To an Earth Realm martial artist, a Heaven Realm martial artist's Qi could be treated as a Dipper Qi. Good, an exceptional prodigy. Ouyang Wentian's eyes were wide open. Today, he had truly broadened his horizons. This was the first time he had seen someone who was able to cultivate a 4-star secret technique to the perfection realm in less than a month. Back when he was at the Disha realm, he had spent a total of 3 years to achieve this. In comparison, the rest of the people who cultivated the pure Yang Dipper Qi were simply idiots and slow-witted. Staring at Li Fuchen, Ouyang Wendian thought to himself, when this child steps into the heaven realm, perhaps I can make an exception and impart him the Sect Origin Sword's secret technique. Sect Origin Sword's secret technique, Azure Water Sect's secret technique. Among the hundreds of 5-star secret techniques in the entire East Unicorn continent, the Sect Origin Sword's secret technique was ranked top 10. Even the Heaven Fiend sect's Heaven Fiend Azura secret technique didn't have such a high ranking. But no matter how good something was, it had to be used by others. Blindly keeping it wouldn't reflect its value. In Ouyang Wentian's opinion, it was like casting pearls before swine for the Sect Origin Sword's secret technique to land in the hands of Li Fuchen. As for the question of loyalty, it could be put aside for now. A true prodigy must be given absolute trust. If it was because of loyalty, it would only cause the other party to hold a grudge. What's more, Li Fuchen's clan would arrive at the Azure Water sect soon. With the entire clan around, Ouyang Wendian didn't have to worry about Li Fuchen's loyalty. Of course, that was a matter for the future. The Sect Origin Sword's secret technique required one to be at least at the Heaven Realm to cultivate. Earth Realm martial artists with Heaven-defying perception wouldn't be able to cultivate the Sect Origin Swords because their Qi wouldn't be able to keep up. Chapter 284. 3 days passed by in a flash. At the plaza in front of the Azure Water Grand Hall, apart from Li Fuchen's group, there were 2 other gold-class direct disciples, Lu Wuhuang and Yuan Tian. The 2 of them were 5-star bone frames and were young, around the age of 20. They weren't qualified to participate in this year's Stars ranking tournament, but they would be qualified for the next one. Furthermore, they would be the main force. 3 years later, Li Xiangru and the other 2 might have already stepped into the Heaven Realm. Only Li Fuchen might still be at the Earth Realm. By then, Lu Wuhuang and Yuan Tian would definitely be one of the 4 spots. Hence, for this Stars ranking tournament, the 2 of them could follow the group to meet the prodigies of the various sects and to prepare for the next Stars ranking tournament. A short moment later, Zhao Wujin arrived, together with Zhao Mingyue. As the Azure Water sect's inner sect Grand Elder, Zhao Wujin's status was just inferior to the sect Patriarch, Supreme Elder, and Protector. His status was extremely esteemed, and if he were to step into the Reincarnation Realm, he would naturally be a Protector. Hence, he was qualified to bring Zhao Mingyue along. A moment later, Ouyang Wendian and the 2 Supreme Elders walked over. The Azure Water sect required the protection of the Supreme Elders, and it was impossible for all the Supreme Elders to follow along. It was already praiseworthy for 2 of them to come. Let's go! Seeing that everyone was here, Ouyang Wendian waved his hand and 2 Class 4 high-tier spirit beasts swooped down. Splitting into 2 groups, everyone stood on the back of the spirit beasts, which soared into the sky and vanished into the clouds. Class 4 high-tier spirit beasts were extremely fast and were even faster than regular reincarnation realm martial artists. In order to avoid being blown away, Li Fuchen and the others sat down cross-legged. Ouyang Wenyan, the two supreme elders, and Zhao Wujin naturally didn't want to sit still and sat cross-legged too. Li Fuchen, who sat cross-legged, didn't waste any time and started to cultivate the true Inferno technique. This child is truly a cultivation maniac. On the back of the neighboring spirit beast, the gray-haired supreme elder who was blind in one eye praised. Ouyang Wenyan nodded. To be able to cultivate in such an environment, it requires an extremely high spirit will. Regular Earth Realm martial artists or even Heaven Realm martial artists would only be able to close their eyes and meditate. They wouldn't be able to comprehend techniques. Why did martial artists go into seclusion? It was so that they could not be disturbed and concentrate all their energy on breaking through. However, if one's willpower was strong, they would be able to remain calm in any environment and place. It did not matter whether they went into seclusion or not. Even if they did, it would not be for their own personal reasons. Rather, it was because they were afraid of encountering powerful enemies during the process of breaking through. It had been some time since his true Inferno technique broke through to the 16th layer. During these days, Li Fuchen naturally pushed the true Inferno technique to the peak state of the 16th rank and was just one step away from the 17th rank. But this barrier wasn't that easy to break through. Under normal circumstances, even a 5-star bone frame would need at least a few years to break through. Mystic class, peak tier cultivation techniques, the higher the level, the more exaggerated. It was already extremely difficult for a Heaven Realm martial artist to break through to the 19th rank. Just like Zhao Wujin, he relied on the accumulation of time to cultivate one of the two mystic class, peak tier cultivation techniques, the true Azure Water technique, to the 19th rank. It wasn't because of his high perception, after all, he was still a 4-star bone frame. The Stars ranking tournament was held at the 100 Battle Region's Star Fate Mountain. Over the past few days, people from various sects had arrived at Mount Star Fate one after another. For a time, the usually deserted Mount Star Fate became unprecedentedly lively. Is this MT Star Fate? Some of the geniuses from the various sects who had never been to MT Star Fate looked at the huge mountain that soared into the clouds and couldn't help but feel awe. MT Star Fate was known as one of the 3 major mountain peaks of the East Unicorn continent. It was rumored that MT Star Fate dictated the destiny of the East Unicorn continent. In every Stars ranking tournament, the rankers would be able to obtain a trace of MT Star Fate's Star Fate. The higher the ranking, the more Star Fate they would obtain. Astral Fate was something even more precious than Heavenly Dipper Battle Chi. The Heavenly Dipper Battle Chi could increase one's cultivation speed by several folds. But Star Fate could affect a martial artist's fate. For example, those with strong celestial fate might be able to avert disaster time and time again. Otherwise, no matter how great a person's talent and potential was, no matter how fast his cultivation speed was, if he died midway, he would just be a shooting star. Only by surviving could one set foot on the peak and live a carefree life. Above the sky, 2 black dots flew over quickly. Soon, the black dots enlarged. They were 2 huge spirit beasts. We've arrived at Mount Star Fate. Ouyang Wenyan asked the spirit beasts to descend. This is MT Star Fate? Li Fuchen was rather shocked too. This was his first time seeing such a massive mountain, and it was just like a divine mountain. Zhao Wujin introduced from the side. The Stars ranking tournament is separated into 3 stages. The first stage is to ascend the mountain, the second stage is to stand on the Heaven Dipper stone pillars, and the third stage is the ranking tournament. The mountain is so tall and it isn't easy to ascend it. Zhao Mingyue stuck out her tongue. Zhao Wujin said, it is naturally not easy to ascend the mountain. Firstly, you have to be fast. If you are too slow, by the time you ascend the mountain peak, the Heaven Dipper stone pillars might already be full. There are 108 Heaven Dipper stone pillars, and once every pillar is filled with people, then these 108 people would be ranked in the Stars ranking. The rest of the people wouldn't have any more chances. Hence, you have to ensure that your speed is fast enough. If your speed isn't fast enough, even if you have the strength to enter the stars ranking, it wouldn't make a difference. Ouyang Wendian nodded and added, during the process of ascending the mountain, you might be ambushed by others. Hence, it is very important to choose the route. If the route isn't chosen well, you might encounter some elite prodigies in advance. This was what Ouyang Wendian was most worried about. Currently, the elite prodigies of the East Unicorn continent were the 3 king stars, 6 young masters, and 4 fairies. Apart from them, there were definitely some newly risen elite prodigies. If Li Fuchen were to encounter these people, even Li Fuchen would have a hard time. If Li Xiangru and the others were to encounter them, they would naturally be doomed and would miss out on this opportunity. Of course, ascending the mountain is just the first phase. Unless your luck is too bad, there shouldn't be any problems. The true difficulty is to stand on the Heaven Dipper stone pillars. There are 108 Heaven Dipper stone pillars. Apart from those elite prodigies who are occupying the Heaven Dipper stone pillars, the rest of the Heaven Dipper stone pillars will be contested by several individuals. They won't allow you to stand on them easily. Even if you manage to stand on one of the pillars and the rest of the Heaven Dipper stone pillars aren't occupied, others can still contest with you for the Heaven Dipper stone pillars until all the Heaven Dipper stone pillars are occupied. Ouyang Wendian took a glance at the 4 of them. Among the 4 of them, Li Fuchen and Li Xiangru definitely had the strength to enter the stars ranking. Chen Yuanhu and Xue Feng might be slightly lacking, but they might still have a chance. If the Azure Water sect could have 2 or more individuals enter the stars ranking, the star fate that they brought might just affect the Azure Water sect. Sects also had their own fate. Some of the sects with stronger fate would be able to produce even more fearsome prodigies. When they matured, the sect would naturally grow stronger and one day, they would become one of the elite factions. As time elapsed, more and more people arrived. A single sect would have at least a dozen individuals. A few dozen sects would have at least a few hundred individuals, and this number was still rapidly increasing. As the foot of MT Star Fate was shrouded in mist, there was only one entrance to ascend the mountain, and it was a stone door. Right now, everyone was gathered at the empty space in front of the stone door. They weren't too far apart from each other, which was why Li Fuchen and the others were able to see the members of the other sects with their naked eyes. So many Reincarnation Realm martial artists. Chapter 285. Reincarnation Realm martial artists were the true experts of the East Unicorn continent. They dictated the fate of the sects and also the fate of the continent. Every Reincarnation Realm martial artist was an exceptional prodigy. When they were young, they were all prodigies and outstanding individuals. Someone calculated that in the East Unicorn continent, more than 80% of the Reincarnation Realm martial artists were 5-star bone frames. Less than 5% were 6-star bone frames. The rest were the elite 4-star bone frames and some of the regular prodigies who had amazing fated encounters. The deterrence of Reincarnation Realm martial artists was extremely strong. The reason why sects didn't easily start a war, apart from the surrounding sects, was because they didn't have the confidence to kill the opposing sect's Reincarnation Realm martial artist. Even the elite sects didn't dare to say that they could kill an ordinary sect's Reincarnation Realm martial artist. Once upon a time, there was an apex sect. After a strict layout, they annihilated a nearby ordinary sect. However, there was a flaw in their plan. They accidentally let a Reincarnation Realm martial artist escape. For the next few years, this Reincarnation Realm martial artist took revenge on this apex sect. This caused the apex sect to be in a state of panic. There were countless deaths and injuries. In the end, they spent a huge price to invite a Reincarnation Realm martial artist who was good at tracking to kill the other party. Hence, once one's cultivation reached the Reincarnation Realm, even the elite sects would give you some face and wouldn't easily offend you. Of course, if they chose to offend you, it meant that they were going to kill you. The Celestial Star sect is here, someone said. Hearing this, everyone looked up at the sky. Above the sky, 3 giant spirit beasts swooped down. On the backs of the 3 spirit beasts, there were 6 Reincarnation Realm martial artists, which was twice as many as the Azure Water sect. There were close to 20 youths, All of them were in high spirits and had arrogant expressions. The Celestial Star sect was one of the elite sects in the East Unicorn continent. As a disciple of the Celestial Star sect, their status was much more respectable than regular sect disciples. On the back of the second spirit beast, it should be the Celestial Seven and young patriarch Celestial Star. Someone said, on the back of the second spirit beast, there were 8 youths. Every one of these 8 youths was extraordinary. They were emitting an all-powerful aura. Many of the sect's reincarnation realm martial artists observed them and had to admit that there was only one person in their sect that could be compared to the most ordinary members of the Celestial Seven. Li Fuchen's eyes similarly landed on the 8 of them. With just a single glance, he saw Han Feng. As one of the Celestial Seven, Han Feng was rather fearsome. In the Azure Water sect, apart from himself, perhaps only Li Xiangru could be compared with Han Feng. Chen Yuanhu's qi presence seemed to be slightly inferior. Moreover, this Han Feng was also very young. Just like him, they were both rising stars. However, no matter how powerful Han Feng was, he was only one of the Heavenly Star Seven. In front of him stood a young man holding an iron fan. This young man's face was like jade and his eyes were like the stars. As the spirit beast swooped down, the young man's clothes fluttered in the wind, making him look like a handsome tree facing the wind. Just his calm and elegant temperament alone made many geniuses feel ashamed of their inferiority. This person must be the Heavenly Star Young Master, Murong Di. Li Fuchen thought to himself. Murong Di, one of the 6 young masters, was addressed as the Heavenly Star Young Master or Young Master Celestial Star. Back when Li Fuchen went out to temper himself, Murong Di was already at the 8th level of the Earth realm. Looking at his qi presence now, he was obviously at the peak level of the Earth realm. Li Fuchen could faintly feel that Murong Di's qi presence was purer and more dominant than Li Xiangru's qi presence. "Ha, everyone, how have you been? I, Murong Batian, am late." One of the reincarnation realm martial artists from the Celestial Star sect laughed heartily. His laughter shook the sky and gave off a feeling of shock. Murong Batian, the Celestial Star sect patriarch, was at the 5th level of reincarnation realm and was Murong Di's father. In the reincarnation realm, each level was harder to advance. Regular sects would basically only have a few 3rd-level reincarnation realm martial artists. A sect like the Heaven-defying sect that had a 4th-level reincarnation realm martial artist was already considered a slightly stronger sect. Murong Xiong is still as elegant as ever. We are in awe. Murong Xiong isn't late. We are the ones who came early. Our mental fortitude isn't as good as Murong Xiong. Many of the sect's reincarnation realm martial artists were complimenting Murong Batian. Elite sects or forces, one could only befriend them and not offend them. This was the way of life for regular sections. Murong Batian, you are rather early. Above the firmament, a robust voice echoed down like thunder. Everyone was shocked. Who dared to call out Murong Batian's name directly? Soon enough, everyone confirmed the identity of the visitor. It's the Daoism clan. The Daoism clan was also one of the elite forces in the East Unicorn continent. Furthermore, they were slightly stronger than the Celestial Star sect. Only the reincarnation realm martial artists of the Daoism clan dared to call out Murong Batian's name directly. If it was someone else, they wouldn't even dare to do so even if they had 10 guts. Xiao Shan, you are late. Murong Batian naturally wasn't afraid of the Daoism clan. His Celestial Star sect was only slightly weaker than the Daoism clan and it was just a joke. If they were to really fight, it was still unknown who would win. Moreover, these 2 elite forces basically wouldn't start a war. If 2 tigers were to fight, one would definitely be injured. Why would they let the other elite forces take advantage of them? A violent wind blew and 3 spirit beasts landed. The Daoism clan members appeared in everyone's vision. Just like the Celestial Star sect, the Daoism clan also sent 6 reincarnation realm martial artists. The leader had a stocky build and had a horrific qi presence that wasn't inferior to Murong Batian. He was obviously a 5th-level reincarnation realm martial artist. Apart from the 6 reincarnation realm martial artists, Among the 20 youths of the Daoism clan, 10 of them were extremely eye-catching. Their bodies were emitting an all-powerful qi presence. The Celestial Star sect had the Celestial Seven and the Celestial Star Young Patriarch, while the Daoism clan had the Daoism 10 Greats. These 10 individuals were naturally the 10 most outstanding youths of the Daoism clan. Xiahou Shi. Li Fuchen immediately saw Xiahou Shi. Xiahou Shi's cultivation level was already at the 9th level of the Earth realm. His horrific qi presence was several-fold stronger than before. However, there was another person beside Xiahou Shi who was clearly even more powerful. This person was slightly older than Xiahou Shi. He was expressionless and seemed to be keeping a low profile. But with his keen awareness, Li Fuchen could feel that this person was like a volcano. He might look lifeless during normal times, but once he erupted, it would definitely be earth-shattering. Xiahou Chuan. The Daoism clan's youth generation didn't have any 6-star bone frames. They only had 2 heaven-defying 5-star bone frames. Xiahou Shi was one of them, and the other was the number 1 of the Daoism clan's youth generation, Xiahou Chuan, who was known as Young Master Daoism. Similarly, one of the 6 young masters, Xiahou Chuan was much more experienced than the Celestial Star Young Master, Murong-di. It was rumored that Xiahou Chuan was at the half-step heaven realm. Xiahou Chuan interesting. Murong-di sized up Xiahou Chuan and revealed a smile. During the Stars ranking tournament 3 years ago, he was still young and wasn't mature enough. But this year, he came with the intention of contending for the number 1 rank of the Stars ranking. This Xiahou Chuan was undoubtedly a formidable foe. Li Fuchen. Xiahou Shi swept a glance and noticed the Azure Water sects group at a remote corner and Li Fuchen. After taking a glance, Xiahou Shi withdrew his gaze. A trace of murderous intent was quietly concealed. Chapter 286. Batches after batches of people from the various sects arrived at the empty space in front of the stone door, and there were plenty of Stars rankers among them. Some of them were ranked rather high. When they saw Murong-di and Xiahou Chuan, all of them revealed a grave expression. A person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. When facing 2 of the 6 young masters, they would definitely feel some pressure. Li Fuchen. The carefree sects people had arrived too. Fan Qiansong and Fan Qinyu were impressively among them. When they saw Li Fuchen, the 2 of them walked over. Li Fuchen, you have really surprised us. You are actually accepted as a direct disciple by the number 1 mystic martial expert. This is something that the 3 king stars, 6 young masters, and 4 fairies couldn't achieve. Fan Qiansong praised. Fan Qinyu joked, Li Shixiang, we will be relying on you in the future. Li Fuchen let out a bitter laugh and said, as long as I can protect myself, I will definitely protect you. The 2 of them didn't know that mystic martial experts wouldn't stay in the mystic martial hidden domain forever. There would be a day when they would leave. When that time came, the so-called direct disciple of a mystic martial expert wouldn't be worth anything and might even be a calamity. The 2 of them revealed smiles on their faces. If Li Fuchen replied in such a manner, it meant that he treated them as true friends. The Mystic Tools sect is here. Just as the 3 of them were conversing, there was another commotion. Looking at the 3 spirit beasts that descended from the sky, Fan Qiansong spoke faintly. The Mystic Tools sect is definitely the most fearsome sect in the East Unicorn continent. There isn't anyone that can compare to them. One of the 3 king stars, the immovable king star, is from the Mystic Tools sect. Immovable king star, huh? Li Fuchen naturally knew how terrifying the Mystic Tools sect was. This sect's foundation was too solid and had a long history. As compared to the Mystic Tools sect, the Celestial Star sect could only be considered a junior. Even the Daoism clan, which had a similarly long history, could only be considered as a junior in front of the Mystic Tools sect. The only sect that could compare with the Mystic Tools sect in history would probably be the other elite sect, the Eternal Spring Valley. As an exceptional prodigy of the Mystic Tools sect, the immovable king star didn't just possess a 6-star bone frame, he was blessed by the heavens in terms of cultivation. At the same time, he was also the youngest blacksmith master and tool pattern master in the Mystic Tools sect in the past 1,000 years. His talent was so outstanding that it caused one's hair to stand on end. The elegant Fan Xinyu was afraid that Li Fuchen didn't know about the immovable king star, hence she explained in detail, Li Shixiang, among the 3 king stars, the immovable king star, Qi Heng has the strongest defense. The Mystic Tools sect has plenty of secret techniques, and these secret techniques require the body to be branded with tool patterns. The higher the grade of the tool pattern, the stronger the body. During the stars ranking tournament 3 years ago, apart from the other 2 king stars, no one else could even break his defense. That's right. According to what I know, 3 years ago, his body was branded with a low-grade profound grade tool mark. I wonder if he has changed his tool mark now. Fan Qiansong added. Hearing this, Li Fuchen didn't feel surprised. Firstly, he knew about the Mystic Tools sect and the immovable king star, Qi Heng. Secondly, he had also cultivated the incomplete sword essence which was related to tool patterns. The difference was that his incomplete sword essence could only brand sword patterns on the bones, while the Mystic Tools sect could only brand tool patterns on the body, which was more external. One on the inside and the other on the outside. Interesting. Li Fuchen was very curious about the Mystic Tools sect. After his bones were branded with the bronze sword pattern, apart from being able to convert the true Inferno Qi into bronze sword Qi, it also changed the toughness of his bones. It wasn't exaggerating to say that even if someone who had the same ability level as him slashed at his arm, they would only be able to cut open his flesh and wouldn't be able to sever his arm bones. Because the toughness of his arm bones was already comparable to a Mystic-class mid-tier weapon. But for members of the Mystic Tools sect to be able to brand tool patterns on their bodies, it meant that their skin and flesh defense was extremely tough. If the attack power wasn't at an extremely horrifying level, it would be hard to break their skin and flesh defense. On the back of the second spirit beast, the short-haired and muscular Qi Heng leaped down from the spirit beast. His movement technique looked extremely swift and violent. Right now, even Murong Di and Xiahou Chuan couldn't help but have a change in expression. The 3 king stars were like a boulder that was pressing on everyone's heart. Before this boulder was removed, they wouldn't be able to breathe normally. Qi Heng's body was extremely robust and he was a head taller than most of the people. His eyes were like lightning as he took a glance at the crowd. When he saw Murong Di and Xiahou Chuan, he paused for a moment. These 2 were able to be ranked as one of the 6 young masters and they definitely had some capabilities. Elite prodigies. 3 of them are here. It is truly hard to imagine what kind of scene it will be when all the elite prodigies are gathered together. Some of the prodigies from the various sects who were here to spectate were in a heated discussion and their emotions were surging. Immovable King Star, Qi Heng, ranked number 2 in the previous Stars ranking tournament and was considered a king among the youth generation. Young Master Dolin, Xiahou Chuan, ranked 15th in the previous Stars ranking tournament. Young Master Celestial Star, Murong Di, ranked 35th in the previous Stars ranking tournament. The latter 2 were ranked lower, but that was because they were rather young. Especially Murong Di, who was only 20 years old when he participated in the Stars ranking tournament. To be ranked 35th in the Stars ranking at the age of 20, there weren't many who could compare with his innate potential. The existence of the 3 of them caused the rest of the people to be overshadowed, just like fireflies encountering the blazing sun. Fan Qiansong and Fan Xinyu looked at the 3 of them before looking at Li Fuchen. They couldn't help but let out a sigh. Li Fuchen might have a huge reputation, but he had never participated in the Stars ranking tournament. In terms of reputation and credibility, he still wasn't comparable to the 3 of them. In this year's Stars ranking tournament, Li Fuchen should at least be able to make it into the top 30. Fan Qiansong thought to himself. In his opinion, young Master Celestial Star, Murong Di, was ranked 35th when he was 20 years old. It was impossible for Li Fuchen to be ranked lower than Murong Di, which was why it was more reliable to rank within the top 30. Before the first wave subsided, another wave arose. Not long after the Mystic Tools sect arrived, the Eternal Spring Valley arrived too. The Eternal Spring Valley sect lived up to its name and flourished for a long time. In this generation, they actually produced 2 6-star bone frames. One was young Master Eternal Spring Ting Qingyun and the other was Fairy Muyu, Su Muyu. Young Master Eternal Spring Ting Qingyun was known as the leader of the 6 young masters and was ranked 5th on the stars ranking. Among the 4 that defeated him, the 3 king stars hadn't broken through yet. The 4th-ranked prodigy had already progressed to the heaven realm and had become an expert. As for Fairy Muyu, Su Muyu, she might not be ranked in the stars ranking, but that was because she was still 17 years old 3 years ago. She didn't even participate in the stars ranking tournament and naturally wasn't ranked in the stars ranking. The arrival of the 2 of them caused the atmosphere in front of the stone door to become even more subtle. It was as though there were electric currents flickering in the air. The presence of the elite prodigies caused some of the prodigies to feel their scalps going numb. This person is the Li Fuchen that you mentioned? Young Master Eternal Spring Ting Qingyun had an extremely handsome appearance. He stood with his hands behind his back and quickly locked his eyes on Li Fuchen. Su Muyu replied, Ting Shixiang, that is him. Interesting. A pity that his cultivation is too weak. He is only at the 8th level of the Earth realm and isn't even comparable to Shimi. Ting Qingyun shook his head. It wasn't that he looked down on Li Fuchen. In fact, he already thought highly of Li Fuchen. Otherwise, he wouldn't have specially mentioned Li Fuchen. But who here wasn't a prodigy? It was unbelievably difficult for them to surpass levels to battle. Chapter 287. Su Muyu didn't comment. She only briefly mentioned Li Fuchen in front of Ting Qingyun and didn't say anything about Li Fuchen. Ting Qingyun's understanding of Li Fuchen was probably the same as everyone else. She only knew that Li Fuchen was the first to enter the 7th mystic martial door and was accepted as a personal disciple by the first mystic martial expert. Of course, Li Fuchen's 1-star bone frame talent was known by everyone after it was spread. 1-star bone frame. Not even Su Muyu would have thought that the outstanding Li Fuchen was actually a 1-star bone frame. She always thought that Li Fuchen was at least a 5-star bone frame. This undoubtedly broke everyone's understanding and caused everyone's suspicions. In everyone's opinion, the 1-star bone frame Li Fuchen could be considered a prodigy, but not an elite prodigy. As an elite prodigy, the future had to be clear. Li Fuchen's future was too unclear and might just be a flash in the pan. Ting Qingyun, you are here. Qi Heng regarded Ting Qingyun with great importance. In the previous stars ranking tournament, Ting Qingyun was ranked 5th and in terms of ability, she wasn't inferior to him. Ting Qingyun sized up Qi Heng. It seems like your defense has gotten stronger. Qi Heng's Qi presence was extremely strange. His entire body was like a weapon and was emitting a heavy metallic Qi presence, like a human but not a human. Qi Heng grinned and revealed a row of neat and terrifying teeth. He laughed and said, This stars ranking tournament will be the last one I will participate in. I hope I can enjoy myself to my heart's content. If he was willing, he could have progressed to the heaven realm a year ago. There were 3 reasons why he suppressed himself. The first reason was to obtain more star fate. Star fate was illusory, but most people believed that with the protection of star fate, their future would be much smoother. The second reason was to obtain more heaven dipper battle chi. He might have suppressed his cultivation for a year, but if he could obtain more heaven dipper battle chi, he would be able to make up for it. The third reason was a groundless rumor. It was rumored that this year's stars ranking tournament was the grandest stars ranking tournament in the history of the East Unicorn continent. The figures in this year's stars ranking tournament would one day stir up the entire East Unicorn continent. Most importantly, this year's stars ranking tournament would have a true dragon that would dominate the entire East Unicorn continent. There were some things that one would rather believe than not, which was why Qi Heng chose to believe it. Ting Qingyun faintly smiled and did not speak. He had heard of some rumors regarding this year's stars ranking tournament. As far as he was concerned, these were all imaginary things. A true dragon appeared and dominated the entire East Unicorn continent. This was impossible, at least for countless years. No one in the East Unicorn continent had done it. In order to dominate the entire East Unicorn continent, one must first have absolute strength. It was useless to be just a little stronger than others. One must at least be stronger by one realm. Take the East Unicorn continent for example. If anyone progressed to the Battle Spirit realm and became a Battle Spirit realm martial artist, then that person would indeed be able to rule over the East Unicorn continent. A single command from the East Unicorn continent would be followed. But ever since those absolute experts vanished, the East Unicorn continent didn't have any more Battle Spirit realm martial artists. Perhaps it had appeared, but for some unknown reason, it had disappeared. Look, it's the Sky Dragon Sword sect and High Heaven Sword sect. The two great sword sects are here at the same time. What a coincidence! An uproar broke out on the empty ground again. Among the hundreds of sects in the East Unicorn continent, there were more than a dozen Sword Dao sects, but there were only two elite Sword Dao sects, namely the Sky Dragon Sword sect and the High Heaven Sword sect. The Sky Dragon Sword sect had one of the 6 young masters, Young Master Dragon Sword, Xianxia. The High Heaven Sword sect also had one of the 6 young masters, Young Master Flying Sword Luo Feiyun. In the previous Stars ranking tournament, Xianxia was ranked 28th and Luo Feiyun was ranked 11th. The Spirit Beast landed, Xianxia and Luo Feiyun also landed. Swordsmen had outstanding temperament. As Sword Dao prodigies, their temperament stood out. Just by standing there, it gave people a feeling that couldn't be ignored and was as resplendent as the stars. Compared to the two of them, the rest of the people were all overshadowed. Young Master Dragon Sword, Xianxia, with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, had a unique sword monarch temperament. He glanced around and noticed immovable King Star Qiheng, Young Master Eternal Spring Chengqingyun, Young Master Celestial Star Murong Di, Young Master Dolin Xiahou Chuan, and Li Fuchen. After looking at Qiheng and Teng Qingyun, Xianxia withdrew his gaze. In his eyes, only Qiheng and Teng Qingyun were strong enemies, and the rest could only be regarded as strong enemies. Luo Feiyun's figure and appearance are not inferior to Qianxia's. He is dressed in white. When he moves, it is like a white cloud fluttering. It is as light as nothing. It is not hard to imagine that his body technique should have reached a very terrifying level. Li Fuchen next to Fan Qiansong said, Young Master Dragon Sword, Xianxia, you should know his details, that Young Master Flying Sword Luo Feiyun was famous earlier than Xianxia, ranked 11th in the last Stars ranking tournament. His sword art is powerful, Flying Sword is even more powerful. In the last Stars ranking tournament, except for a few people, the rest can take his Flying Sword. Even Xianxia was defeated under his Flying Sword. Of course, Xianxia fire is still shallow, age is also younger than Luo Feiyun by 1 year. Flying Sword? Li Fuchen had heard of Young Master Flying Sword, Luo Feiyun. The so-called Flying Sword is actually a concealed weapon, and the style of the concealed weapon is like a small sword. Fan Xinyu said, My senior brother from Carefree Sect has seen Luo Feiyun in action, and he said that the speed of his Flying Sword is extremely fast. Under the Flying Sword, he never misses his target. Other than the number 1 King Star, no one would be able to dodge it with their movement skills and could only resist it head-on. That's impressive. Li Fuchen nodded. The speed of the sword Qi is also fast, but the sword Qi is not as powerful as the Flying Sword and can be easily resisted. Fan Qiansong withdrew his gaze from Luo Feiyun and said to Li Fuchen, others do not believe you, I believe you, I wish you break into the top 10. I will work hard. Li Fuchen nodded. These absolute heavens chosen, more or less gave him some pressure, and most of the pressure came from the gap in cultivation level. Among the people, Su Muyu, who is the same age as him, is already at the 9th level of the Earth realm, 1 level higher than him. Among the others, immovable King Star Qiheng has the highest cultivation level, reaching the half-step heaven realm. Young Master Eternal Spring Teng Qingyun, Young Master Dragon Sword, Young Master Celestial Star Murong Di, Young Master Dolin Xiahou Chuan, and Young Master Flying Sword Luo Feiyun are all at the peak level of the Earth realm. There is no 9th level Earth realm. Thankfully, I had swallowed a cultivation-boosting medicinal pill, otherwise I would have had a hard time dealing with it. Li Fuchen secretly said. Chapter 288. Of course, pressure was just pressure. To Li Fuchen, this pressure wasn't worth mentioning. Even the immovable king star Qiheng could not make him feel the slightest bit of fear. Now that he was at the 8th level of the Earth realm, he believed that he could fight with anyone. Furthermore, he wanted to have a hearty battle. Soon, more people from top sects arrived. This time, it was the Wind-Snow sect. Like the Eternal Spring Valley, the Wind-Snow sect also had two supreme geniuses. They were Gale and the Ice Fairy. Young Master Gale Han Yiming was at the peak stage of the Earth realm and was ranked 12th in the previous Stars ranking tournament. Icy Snow Fairy Su Lin was at the peak stage of the Earth realm and was ranked 15th in the previous Stars ranking tournament. Young Master Gale was just like his name. He stood there like a gust of wind, and even his chi couldn't be captured. If an ordinary person were to face him, they would probably lose their will to fight even before the fight began. After all, if you couldn't even lock onto your opponent's chi, how could you fight? The Snow Fairy, Su Lin, was just like her name. Although her body did not emit any icy aura, people with keen senses could still sense what kind of icy power was contained within her body. Fan Qiansong introduced, Young Master Gale is the #1 light body technique among the youth generation. During the previous Stars ranking tournament, he had already comprehended a mystic class mid-tier light body technique intent. This time, he must have reached a new level and might have already comprehended a mystic class high-tier light body technique intent. As for the Icy Snow Fairy, Su Lin, in the previous Stars ranking tournament, she had cultivated the Wind-Snow sect's mystic class peak-tier cultivation technique, Icy Soul True technique, to the 16th rank. In terms of cultivation technique rank, the 3 king stars are inferior to her. It is said that apart from her 6-star icy snow bone frame, her physique seems to be an incredible icy cold physique. Therefore, when she cultivates icy cold cultivation techniques, she is able to achieve several times the results with half the effort and is blessed by the heavens. Hearing this, Li Fuchen raised his brows. This young Master Gale was not to be underestimated. As far as he knew, most people's Qin Gong had only reached the low level of the profound level. Very few people could reach the middle level of the profound level. A person's energy is limited, and you can't do too many things with that limited energy. If that was the case, he wouldn't be able to do anything well. I wonder what his martial arts realm is like? Qin Gong was powerful, but if one's martial arts realm was not high, it would be useless. Martial arts were the most important means of a martial artist. Li Fuchen shifted his gaze from Han Yiming to Ice and Snow Fairy, Su Lin. His eyes were filled with admiration. 3 years ago, the other party had cultivated the profound rank peak-tier Ice Soul True technique to the 16th level. This kind of cultivation talent was truly terrifying. One must know that his current cultivation technique was only at the peak of the 16th level. He was still a step away from the 17th level. Perhaps it has already reached the 17th level. Li Fuchen found it hard to imagine the power of a 17th rank mystic class, peak-tier technique. 4 mystic class, peak-tier techniques, from the 15th rank onwards, each rank was like the heavens. The 16th rank and the 17th rank might seem to be only 1 rank apart, but when it came to a real fight, the latter was enough to crush the former. Of course, the prerequisite was that both sides were on par with each other except for the cultivation technique rank. Time flew by, and during this time, the people from the Heaven Fiend sect also arrived. As one of the 4 fairies, Fairy Qinggu naturally became the center of attention. In this year's Stars ranking tournament, Yan Qinggu was definitely the youngest. In the history of the Stars ranking tournament, Yan Qinggu was also the youngest. To participate in the Stars ranking tournament at the age of 18 was something that even a 6-star bone frame would find hard to achieve. Someone guessed that in the next Stars ranking tournament, Yan Qinggu would definitely be an invincible existence. Even in this year's tournament, she would probably have a decent ranking on the Stars ranking. From afar, Yan Qinggu glanced at Li Fuchen. Others were envious of her 6-star bone frame, but in her opinion, Li Fuchen was the anomaly. A mere 1-star bone frame was actually able to make it this far. Initially, she thought that she wouldn't have any interactions with Li Fuchen in the future. Some things should be left in the past. But she didn't expect that Li Fuchen's cultivation speed didn't slow down because of the advancement of the cultivation realm. Instead, it was getting faster and had the tendency to surpass a 6-star bone frame. Generally speaking, when a person with a poor bone frame was fortunate enough to reach a new cultivation realm, their cultivation would stagnate. For example, a 2-star bone frame had a 20% chance of progressing to the Earth realm. But even after progressing to the Earth realm, it would normally take many years to progress by one level. Some 2-star bone frames would only be at the 4th or 5th level of the Earth realm when they died of old age. It was extremely rare for them to be able to cultivate to the 7th, 8th, or 9th level of the Earth realm. In other words, with Li Fuchen's bone frame, after progressing to the Earth realm, he shouldn't be able to progress by one level even after 10 years. But in such a short period of time, Li Fuchen had already progressed to the 8th level of the Earth realm. Although there was the credit of the Star Road hidden domain and the elixirs, but Li Fuchen's body had at least advanced by a few levels. His perception is far superior to normal people. That should be the key? Yan Qingwu thought. If Li Fuchen knew what Yan Qingwu was thinking, he would basically agree, but only on the basics. The reason why his cultivation speed was so fast wasn't just because of his perception, there were other important aspects too. Like his spirit will and consciousness. A strong spirit will allowed him to progress smoothly and wouldn't have any unstable state of mind, causing him to be unable to control his own strength. A strong consciousness allowed him to understand his own body very well, allowing him to circulate his qi to break through more easily. Otherwise, with just his perception, Li Fuchen's cultivation speed wouldn't be comparable with a 6-star bone frame. Of course, it was mainly due to his young age. They were both 20 years old, but Su Muyu's cultivation level was higher than Li Fuchen's. But before progressing to the heaven realm, Li Fuchen would slowly catch up. Once his true Inferno technique broke through to the 17th rank or even the 18th rank, his cultivation speed would reach a whole new level. Including Yan Qingwu, 3 of the 4 fairies were here, the 6 young masters were all here, and one of the 3 king stars were here. After counting, there were still 3 elite prodigies that weren't here yet. These 3 elite prodigies were the head of the 4 fairies, Tri-Absolute Fairy, the head of the 3 king stars, Thunderous King Star, and the weakest of the 3 king stars, Golden Whip King Star. Tri-Absolute Fairy was ranked 7th in the previous star's ranking tournament. Thunderous King Star was ranked 1st in the previous star's ranking tournament. Golden Whip King Star was ranked 3rd in the previous star's ranking tournament. They were all heavyweight figures. The Tri-Absolute Palace is here. The Thunder God sect is here too. There is also the Golden Extinction Hall. It seemed like it was discussed beforehand. In just 15 minutes, the 3 elite sects had all arrived. As of now, the top 10 elite sects were all here. They were the Celestial Star Sect, Dolin Clan, Mystic Tools Sect, Eternal Spring Valley, Sky Dragon Sword Sect, High Heaven Sword Sect, Wind Snow Sect, Tri-Absolute Palace, Thunder God Sect, and the Golden Extinction Hall. Among them, the Thunder God Sect was the strongest, hence, they were also known as the number 1 sect of the continent. Chapter 289. Tri-Absolute Fairy Jiang Ruoliu's beauty could topple cities, and her aura was luxurious and varied. She stood there like a goddess. Judging from the current situation, it was clear that Tri-Absolute Fairy was slightly superior among the 4 fairies. But that was only for now. In terms of appearance, the other 3 fairies were not inferior to Jiang Ruoliu. They were only lacking in cultivation and foundation. No matter how ordinary a person's appearance was, if she could cultivate to a very high realm, she would naturally reveal an extraordinary temperament. It could be said that as one's cultivation increased, so would one's temperament. Moreover, it would be an earth-shaking improvement. With a half-step Heavenly Dipper realm cultivation base, Jiang Ruoliu's temperament almost reached the level of Heavenly Dipper realm, which is incomparable to the other 3 fairies. Of course, Jiang Ruoliu was not the best in terms of looks and temperament. Of Jiang Ruoliu's 3 ultimate skills, the first was Qinggong. The second was the palm technique. The third technique was illusion. During the previous star's ranking tournament, even the Thunderous King Star, Siddelei, wasn't able to completely resist Jiang Ruoliu's illusion art. Fortunately, he was only slightly affected. Golden Whip King star, Jin Sudong, ranked third in the previous star's ranking. As one of the 3 king stars, he was tall and had a golden crown on his head. His entire person was full of heroic spirit, exuding an indescribable domineeringness and sharpness. Being stared at by him was like being stared at by an eagle, his gaze terrifying and invasive. If the immovable king star, Qiheng, was a mountain, then the Golden Whip King star, Jin Sudong, was a blazing sun. One was hidden, the other was shining. As expected of the King star, Li Fuchen could feel how strong the domineering aura of Jin Sudong was. Because of their different personalities, everyone's aura was displayed differently. Some people's auras were reserved, some people's auras were strange, some people's auras were tough, and some people's auras were soft. Jin Sudong's aura, on the other hand, was like a blazing sun, constantly erupting outwards, revealing a domineering aura. In the face of such an existence, those with weak willpower would not be able to produce any fighting spirit. Night and day could not coexist. When the sun rose, all the stars would retreat, and nothing could stop it. At this moment, Li Fuchen finally knew why there were only 3 King Star and why Qiheng and Jin Sudong could become King Star. It wasn't because of talent or potential. In terms of talent and potential, the others might not be inferior to the 3 King Stars. It was because of his domineering aura. The 3 King Stars had a domineering aura that the other younger generation didn't have. This kind of domineering aura was not tyrannical. Domineering was a kind of king's demeanor. It was a kind of extreme confidence that despised everything. Some people would have a domineering aura at some point in time. That was created by a unique environment and unique emotions. However, the 3 King Stars were like real kings. Domineering aura had already become a part of them. Other than the 3 King Stars, young Master Dragon Sword also had a domineering aura. However, young Master Dragon Sword Qiyue's domineering aura was extremely overbearing, forming a unique emperor's aura. The so-called Qi of a monarch was one of absolute supremacy, one that stood high above the masses, and was even more extreme. Legend had it that during the era when super experts fought, there were people who walked the path of the Sword Emperor or Sword Emperor. This kind of sword Dao was extremely tyrannical, but it was a pity that it was easy to walk into a dead end. East Lin continent once had a country, but because the emperor was too arrogant, it fell apart. Later, myriad sects stood in great numbers, and there was no more country. From this, it could be seen that the path of an emperor was not that easy to walk. In fact, it might even be impossible. Perceiving Li Fuchen's gaze, Jin Su turned his head to the east, and his gaze was like a blazing light as he attacked. What a powerful spirit will! Li Fuchen was a little surprised. Spirit will, this thing is also related to personality. Some personalities can make the spirit will more condensed, more tenacious, and some personalities can make the spirit will more aggressive. Jin Sudong's spirit will is really like a scorching sun, scorching and overbearing. Of course, Li Fuchen was just a little surprised. Surprised that Jin Sudong's spirit will was the strongest he had ever seen in the younger generation. Unfortunately, it was not enough to shock him. Li Fuchen was surprised, and Jin Sudong was even more surprised. He had heard of Li Fuchen and seen Li Fuchen's portrait. So he recognized Li Fuchen at a glance. Know that Li Fuchen is the most amazing figure in East Lin continent in the past year. After all, even if they 3 King Star, they were not accepted as personal disciple by the first and second odd martial artist, but Li Fuchen was accepted as a personal disciple by the first odd martial artist. Hence, that glance earlier was intentional as he wanted to probe Li Fuchen. But the result surprised him. If his spirit will is the scorching sun, Li Fuchen's spirit will is the starry sky. So deep, so vast. No matter how huge the scorching sun is, it can't be compared with the starry sky, it is just a part of the starry sky. Interesting. Jin Sudong smiled at the corner of his mouth. Li Fuchen's spirit will surprised him, but in this world, martial artist needs to consider too many qualities. Spirit will is only one of them. As long as it is not bad, it can be said. Top 30 or top 20? Li Fuchen's cultivation base can't make Jin Sudong give too high an evaluation. The top May 20th be Li Fuchen's limit. Li Fuchen didn't know Jin Sudong's thoughts. Even if he knew, he didn't care. His eyes shifted from Jin Sudong to the last absolute heaven's chosen, the first King Star, Thunder King Star, Sidolei. The first King Star. This title is supreme glory. To a certain extent, the first King Star represents the first heaven's chosen, representing the king of heaven's chosen. Thunder King Star, Sidolei, is also very tall, faintly taller than Jin Sudong, only shorter than immovable King Star, Qiheng. The strong him, the upper body is like a small mountain, the lower body has a pair of long legs, the whole person is like a group of thunder, quite motionless like a mountain, moving like thunder. Speaking of Sidolei, you have to say Thunder God Sect. Thunder God Sect is the Eastern Lean Continent #1 sect. Shedding Body Realm martial artist is the most, and the strongest. Thunder God Sect does not have martial Dao, but is biased towards Thunder attribute. Whether it is cultivation technique, secret technique or various martial art, most of them are Thunder attribute, the most famous of which is naturally Thunder God Sect #1 cultivation technique, Thunder Lightning Divine Merit, 5-star secret technique, My Heart is Thunder Heart, #1 martial art Heavenly Thunder Execution. Thunder attribute martial art, overbearing, violent, in the same realm, the same conditions, Thunder God Sect is completely crushing others, whether it is speed or attack power, it is superior, only the defense is slightly inferior. But in the face of absolute attack power, as long as the defense is not too bad, it does not matter. There is a saying that the best defense is actually an attack, which is very reasonable. As the Thunder God Sect's Heaven's Chosen, Sidolei has a 6-star Thunder Root Bone, cultivating Thunder attribute martial art unique. As long as it is Thunder attribute martial art in his hands, he can quickly learn. And his strength, in the younger generation, is absolutely strong. There is almost no shortcoming. It was a crushing advantage in every aspect. In the previous Stars List tournament, even immovable King Star, Qiheng, Golden Whip King Star, Jin Sudong, did not bring too much trouble to Sidolei. Chapter 290. Sidolei stood with his hands behind his back, glancing at all the elite heavens chosen, including Li Fuchen, and smiled faintly. Strength at this point, there is no need to consider the possibility of losing. In his eyes, there is no opponent, even motionless King Star and Golden Whip King Star, for him, is only a slightly stronger existence. So his mentality is different from everyone present, faintly with a trace of detachment. Although there is no opponent, but to understand the unfamiliar means, it is also an interesting thing. Sidolei secretly thought. With the arrival of the 3, the elite heavens chosen are all here. 3 King Star. 6 young masters. For fairies. One by one, either domineering, cold, or gentle, or sharp, or refined, do not know if it is an illusion, everyone feels that the 13 people's chi, in the dark, is not weaker than Shedding Body Realm martial artist, just like a true dragon, even if young, is a true dragon, there is no difference in essence. In addition to these 13 people, there are actually many elite heavens chosen, such as Xiaohoshi, such as Li Fuchen. Of course, in addition to Li Fuchen, the others are 5-star bone frames. These 5-star bone frames, as long as they show extraordinary talent potential in the Stars List tournament, they are qualified to become King Star Young Masters or Fairies, famous in the world. What's 6 young masters? If I wasn't young 3 years ago, 6 young masters must have a place for me. Some sect heavens chosen sneered. There is naturally more than one unconvinced, as long as it is a 5-star bone frame, there is more or less some unconvinced, they think they are not inferior to anyone, including King Star Young Masters and Fairies. Stars List, it is really a gathering of stars, a group of dragons dancing. So many heavens chosen gathered together, even Li Fuchen, in the heart, can't help but have a sense of pride. He is a human after all, not a saint. He has 7 emotions and 6 desires, and has great ambitions. In the face of so many heavens chosen, his battle intent also seems to wake up. In the past, facing those ordinary geniuses, although he went all out, but in the depths of his heart, in fact, there was no tension, because he knew that he would win. But it was different this time. There were plenty of elite prodigies in the Stars ranking tournament, and he wasn't certain about the final outcome. After all, everyone had their own trump cards and killer moves. Moreover, he was at an absolute disadvantage on the surface. He was at the 8th level of the Earth realm and was basically at the bottom of the bottom. Li Fuchen wasn't the only one whose blood was boiling, the rest of the people were as well. Being awe-inspiring in a certain region was nothing. Only being awe-inspiring in the entire continent was truly awe-inspiring. The Stars ranking tournament was a gathering of stars and prodigies. It was extremely difficult to obtain a ranking, but as long as one obtained a ranking, it was enough to prove that one was a prodigy of this era and an existence that couldn't be neglected. Other than the Thunder King star, Soleil, the other heaven's favorites all had their eyes lit up. Their opponents were none other than each other. If the rest of the people were fighting to become geniuses, then they were fighting to become the main characters of this era. The prodigies of the era could only participate. As for the protagonist of an era, he could turn the clouds and rain with a flip of his hand, change the world, and dominate the entire continent. Situ Lei was very calm because he knew that no one could threaten him in this Stars ranking tournament. To him, the Stars ranking tournament was just a game, and soon, this game was going to end. I miss it so much. I miss the days back then. A Reincarnation realm martial artist lamented. Back then, he was also a prodigy and had experienced the Stars ranking tournament. Back then he was high-spirited and had soaring battle intent. He might be immature, but his fighting spirit was obviously stronger than now. Right now, he might be a Reincarnation realm martial artist, but it seemed that as the years of cultivation increased, his fighting spirit was slowly decreasing. His subconscious had been warning him that he was already a Reincarnation realm martial artist and didn't need to take risks or opportunities. It was too difficult to progress from the Reincarnation realm to the Battle Spirit realm, and there was no need to risk it. Since the East Unicorn continent didn't have any Battle Spirit realm martial artists, he just had to cultivate normally, and there was a possibility of death if he took risks. There is no need to miss it. They are just a bunch of small fry. I wonder how many of them have truly matured. There were also some Reincarnation realm martial artists who were disdainful. That's right. Only after reaching the Reincarnation realm can they control their own destiny. They are still unable to control their own destiny. It was obvious that most of the Reincarnation realm martial artists didn't care about the prodigies. In their opinion, even if these prodigies were glorious in the Stars ranking tournament, the best outcome would be to become a new batch of Reincarnation realm martial artists, and it was impossible for them to surpass them. Since that was the case, there was no need for them to care. They were already standing at the peak, while these prodigies were just at the waist of the mountain. The foot of MT Star Fate was shrouded in mist, and there was only one entrance. There was a giant stone door and a stone staircase that extended from the stone door to the foot of the mountain. Once there was no stone staircase or even a mountain path. One had to rely on oneself to find a route up the mountain. Before this, the stone door contained laws and intents, and no one was allowed to enter. After an unknown period of time, there was a pop sound and the laws and intents vanished. There was a gust of wind that surged out from the stone door and blew on everyone. MT Star Fate has opened. Hurry up and ascend the mountain. Some of the experts from the sects urged their disciples. Swish, 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 hundreds of prodigies executed their movement skills and shot towards the stone door. All of these prodigies burst out with extreme speed. They knew clearly that MT Star Fate was extremely tall, and if they were to be faster, it wouldn't be a decisive factor. But if they were to be slower, the consequences would be unpredictable. The first batch of people to ascend the mountain didn't have to worry about anything and just had to ascend the mountain. The people behind would have to deal with obstructions or intentional disturbances from others. In the past, there were prodigies that were severely injured and weren't able to ascend the mountain peak, which was why they wanted to be the first batch of people to ascend the mountain. Of course, those that were fighting to be the first batch were those that didn't have confidence in themselves.
Those that were truly confident in themselves weren't in a hurry to burst out with speed and would leisurely follow behind at a moderate speed. Li Fuchen, do your best. Zhao Mingyue transmitted a message to Li Fuchen. Li Fuchen waved his hand and skimmed towards the stone door. You are not bad, but this year isn't our era yet. Yan Qinggu walked past Li Fuchen and left a statement. Li Fuchen didn't say anything. Perhaps others might think that he was just here to join in the fun and it would be fine as long as he could make it into the top 36. But only he knew that his time was precious. He wouldn't be able to participate in the second Stars ranking tournament, which was why this year's Stars ranking tournament was the only one he would participate in. He would give it his all and fight for first place. After entering the stone door, there was a stone staircase that pierced through the fog. At this point, there were fights that broke out. In the Stars ranking tournament, everyone was an opponent. It was fine if there weren't any obstructions along the way, but if there were, it would be hard to restrain their intense battle intent. The stone staircase was narrow and crowded. The fog on both sides was something that no one was willing to touch. Boom! A huge battle erupted and even Li Fuchen was caught in it. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.